kung fu.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Comic Gamer Movie Show. My name is Deshaun, and today I actually have an action classic. I'm bringing him back along with a new intro, which you guys will see. Thank you, my boy Superwise, for making this one, and the horror intro you guys see. And this week, my action classic is actually a movie that I am fond of. A movie that really is the first time I actually even remotely liked. Well, there was Pitch Black before that, Vin Diesel, and that is 2002's Triple X. This movie, to me, when I was a kid and saw this movie, I thought it was so cool. You gotta remember, in the early 2000s, extreme sports were really popping up on the scene. Snowboarding, BMX, the BMX stuff, skateboarding, Tony Hawk, all of it was really popping up on the scene and becoming a big thing. X Games wasn't really even a thing yet, or at least it wasn't something that we all recognized. I mean, like, in the early 2000s, dude, like, YMCAs, there's a YMCA that's down the road from my house. And I remember in the early 2000s, they had a whole, like, now it's just, they have just this nice little park in front of the YMCA, but there used to be a big-ass skate park in front of the YMCA. Like, that's how big, you know, BMX and all, like the extreme sports world was blowing up in the early 2000s. The skaters, the shoes, the skinny jeans, all of it. All of it was just such a big deal back in the day. It's still a deal today. It's still a deal today, but it isn't what it once was. Extreme sports isn't what it once was. Not back then. And just like in the early 2000s, they took advantage of Vin Diesel, was also in the Fast and the Furious, taking advantage of the idea of, like, just racing in general, and Nas and all that shit was kind of a big deal back in the day. Street racing was a really big thing. I mean, it's still a thing today, but it was like a really big, like, well-known thing when Fast and Furious came out. Triple X was an interesting approach. So Triple X is the story about Vin Diesel's character, Xander Cage. Now, Xander Cage is a former, I don't remember if they say exactly, I can't remember if they say what, extreme sports thing he was doing, what X Games type of sport he was doing, but the way they kind of put it is he was great at whatever he was doing. He was good enough to be pro. He did all these crazy, because Xander Cage is supposed to embody the X Games, all of them. He snowboards, he jumps out of planes, he skateboards, he rides dirt bikes, he does all this X Games shit. Like, he does it all. He can ride the bikes, he can do all the shit. Like, the idea is, he's just this street. He is like the epitome of what every kid grow up like thinking they could be when they get into doing extreme sports. Is you love the adrenaline, you love the feeling it gives you, you love the blood pumping, and you want to just do so many crazy things, you know, like you just want to do as much crazy shit as you can. And most people aren't talented enough to, like, do multiple things. You know, a guy who's a great skateboarder may not be talented enough to be a professional, you know, on the dirt, do tricks on the dirt bike. A guy who's a snowboarder might not be a great skateboarder. But Vin Diesel's Xander Cage represents all of it. He's great at all of these things. So the story is this secret organization headed up by Samuel L. Jackson's Gibbons recruits him to infiltrate this Russian terrorist cell and figure out what they're doing and potentially stop it if he can. Now, they recruit him because the idea in this movie is that the James Bond-like shaken but stirred, mild manner, it's like, because the idea it's very much the idea, it's like the early 2000s, is that it's a different era. Like, you know, criminals aren't the same. Criminals aren't like, you don't have these Goldfinger-like criminals. You don't have these James Bond millionaire criminals. Like, criminals are a little bit more rugged. They're a little bit more extreme. They're a little bit more over the top. Like, these criminals, like, we need someone who could fit in with this crew to infiltrate them. We can't send some proper male-mannered guy in there. And it's like there's just, you can't fake, and you can't fake being a renegade, being a rogue. Like, there's just a personality traits you can't fake. So they recruit Xander Cage to come in here and do this mission. And in the course of doing the mission, obviously, crazy shit goes down. Vin Diesel goes from being... Now, it's a cool little setup, though, because he's kind of, like, forced into this situation, because he does all kinds of illegal shit. I mean, he steals a guy's car, rides the car, like, because he's kind of an activist, or not an activist, he's kind of like a... Well, to put it in perspective, he fucking stole, and the first thing you see at the beginning of the movie is him steal some asshole lawyers, I think it was a lawyer, some asshole's car, and ride that bitch off of a bridge, jump out of it, mid-fall, and parachuted down, and he recorded the whole thing. And that's how he makes a lot of his money, is doing crazy shit and, you know, filming it and making profit off of it, which has got to be one of the first guys to do that. Like, he was doing shit like we do. Some people do shit crazy like that today. He was doing that shit in early 2000s. So Xander Cage has this renegade-like personality. He has this renegade-like calling. People know who he is. They know all the illegal shit he's done. So, like, he's got this, he's recognized in that world. So they needed him that's why they need him to infiltrate. But of course, you know, how the story usually goes. But as it turns out, Gibbons also had an ulterior motive, because Gibbons has been trying to, like, he thinks there's a new breed, he wants a new breed of spies, of undercover operatives, more grittier, because he's like, the times are changed, so we need a more grittier, more grimier, a more street-minded operative who can infiltrate these scarier groups, because this ain't the fucking Cold War anymore. This ain't Cloak and Dagger. It's like, motherfuckers are out in the open and we need fire to fight fire, and that's what you get, Xander Cage. And this movie has some awesome practical stunts. I mean, there are some jaw-dropping stunts, and you know it's all done legit too. It ain't all Vin Diesel. There is this one sequence in particular where buildings are blowing up, and he's like, and you know it's happening, and he's got to ride the dirt bike, and he's jumping, he's like riding off, because like the buildings are like shacks basically, and they're tilted, they're low enough that he can ride up it, and one is exploding as he's riding up and coming down it, and like that whole sequence is badass. There's a snowboard sequence that's badass. Like, there's just so many, whenever they do any of the X games like stuff, the stunts in this movie are awesome. Vin Diesel as Xander Cage I liked him as Xander Cage. Now, they fucked it all up when they did the Return of Xander Cage a couple years, like maybe 6 years ago, 7 years ago. That movie was god-awful. But this version of him, where, and he has an arc too. He goes from, I don't want to be here, or not believing in something bigger than his ego. Because at the end of the day, that's why he's doing everything he's doing, because for adrenaline and an ego boost. And he finds something bigger than himself. He finds something worth dying for, to be in fact. And he proves himself to be capable of being a true agent, the Triple X, so to speak. Now, I can't remember if he called the program Triple X because of the tattoo on his neck, because he has like 3 X's tattooed on his neck, or he called it Triple X after. I can't remember which came first, but the way they kind of set it up is like Samuel L. Jackson's Gibbons was, you know, he wanted, like, this was not just trying to stop a terrorist attack. It was also kind of a test to see if he can recruit people like him to be a new breed of agents. And of course, Xander lives up to the billing. Because he's able to infiltrate this organization. He's able to, you know, he's able to do things. He's able to do the things he can do because of his experiences, because of his extreme sport experiences, and because of his experience of just being around criminals and knowing how people think and knowing the minds of these kind of people. He can get in good with these kind of people because he knows, which is the whole reason they wanted him in the first place. And he's quick on it. He notices things that maybe some normal person probably wouldn't notice, because once again, all of his training came from his experience. And there's just certain things you can't be trained. You have to just experience. And Xander Cage is great with that. This is one of Vin Diesel's best roles. I think his Xander Cage was fun. He was exciting. Like, you never knew what he was going to do. Like, the villains in this movie aren't the best. They're kind of cliche bad guys. Not cliche bad guys, but you know what I mean? Like, they're kind of just cliche, like Russian trash bad guys. There's nothing too complicated about it. They're anarchic. They're not even really. I mean, they're. I always think with this, the terrorist anarchists. I think terrorists are like trying to create terror. Terror with a message. These guys are just straight anarchists. Like they just straight up. They kidnap. I mean, they do some villain shit. They kidnap some scientists, get them to create this deadly gas that they just want to. They just want to take. They just want to kill people, man. They just want to, just cause, not for money, not for anything. They're just anarchists. And nice little arc for Vin Diesel in this, having Xander Cage having to go from, like I said, I don't want to be involved in this to I'm gonna stop this because I can stop this. And like I said, he uses his expertise with driving and riding and all of these different things to overcome the bad guys. And uniquely enough, if they had gotten anyone else to do this, it wouldn't have been able to pull it off. I enjoyed the fuck out of Triple X, the original 2002 Triple X. It's one of my all-time favorite action movies because just for the stunts alone, I think it's worth a watch. It's a great Vin Diesel movie. It's him before Pitch Black 2, which I think his Riddick. Vin Diesel's two best roles to me personally have been, I mean, it's obviously three. Dominic Toretto is his most popular, well-known role, but to me, Riddick and Xander Cage are his two roles that I really always I think he shines the brightest in because it allows him, because Vin Diesel has this way about him that always comes off like he's a very street savvy guy. Like you believe him, like the way he talks, he always comes off like a guy who knows more than what he's telling you, but he's not smug about it. It's a weird kind of combination of how, his acting abilities. And Xander Cage, Dominic Toretto, and Riddick, those characters really allowed him to shine, especially Riddick, because Riddick really allowed him to be quieter. This character allowed him to be cool. Because Dominic's, he's just like, because Dominic Toretto's whole thing is, I'm just a guy. I mean, he's not, obviously, but that's his whole thing. Whereas Xander is over the top. He's got big fur coats. He's got a nice pad. The dude is like, he's into all these extreme sports. Like, Xander is the most over-the-top character Vin Diesel's ever played, and I love that character. So yeah, I would give Triple X, 2002's Triple X, I'd give it an 8.5. I love that movie, man. I think it's got some of the best action sequences that no one talks about, some of the best stunt work no one talks about, and I think you guys should check it out. Well, thank you guys for joining the Comic Game Movie Show. Please remember to like and subscribe and comment below. Have you seen 2002's Triple X? If you haven't, I suggest you check it out. It's a fun movie to watch. Anyways, thank you guys again. See you on the next one. Goodbye.